There's something you need to hear, because understanding this now can save you from disappointment, manipulation, and wasted effort. When a man isn't being honest, he doesn't rely on obvious lies. Instead, he carefully selects his words, disguising his true intentions with charm and false hope. But once you learn to recognize the signs, you'll never be misled again. Today, we're revealing the key phrases that men use when they're not being truthful. Knowing what they really mean will help you see through the facade and stand firmly in your worth. One of the most misleading statements a man can make isn't necessarily a direct lie, but rather a calculated way to keep you emotionally attached while allowing him an easy way out. When a man says, "I'm not looking for anything serious," he is establishing a dynamic where the relationship revolves around his convenience. He enjoys the emotional connection, intimacy, and companionship, but without the responsibility that true commitment requires. A particularly deceptive follow-up to this is, "But let's see where it goes." This phrase is designed to keep you hopeful, making you believe that given time, he might reconsider. The truth is, if he has already determined that he doesn't want a serious relationship, his mind is made up. The uncertainty he presents isn't real. It's a way to delay the inevitable while keeping you invested. Many women hear this and assume that he's just hesitant about commitment. They believe that if they prove their worth, he will eventually change his mind. But this is where the trap is set. The moment you view his indecision as a challenge, you relinquish your power. You invest more, wait longer, and begin to tolerate treatment that you normally wouldn't accept. Understanding these patterns is crucial. When someone is unclear about what they want, it's not your responsibility to convince them. The right person will meet you with certainty, not confusion. Stay true to yourself, recognize the signs, and never settle for less than you deserve. If you're ready to know the hidden lies of a man, let me know by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement helps me continue creating content that challenges outdated beliefs and provides deeper insights that others often miss. The truth behind his words. What he says versus what he really means. It's easy to believe that patience and understanding will eventually lead to love, but reality tells a different story. If a man genuinely values you, he won't leave you wondering where you stand. He won't play with your emotions or keep things vague. Instead, he will be upfront about his intentions because he respects you enough to let you decide whether to stay or walk away. Let's take a closer look at what it really means when a man says, "I'm not looking for anything serious." In most cases, this comes down to one of three things. 1, he enjoys being single and doesn't want to sacrifice his freedom. 2, he's emotionally attached to someone else and isn't ready to move forward. 3, he doesn't see you as the person he wants to commit to. None of these situations work in your favor. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's simply an indication that he's not the right match for you. The worst mistake you can make is waiting for him to suddenly change his mind. That rarely happens. Instead, you could end up spending months or even years in a stagnant relationship, while he benefits from your loyalty and affection without offering true commitment. When you hear these words, don't wait around hoping for something to change. The best response is to walk away. The right person won't leave you feeling uncertain about where you stand. He won't send mixed signals or string you along. A man who truly wants to be with you will be clear, consistent, and intentional about building something real. Your time, energy, and love are too valuable to waste on someone who only keeps you around when it's convenient for them. You deserve to be a priority, not an afterthought. The moment you recognize your own worth, you free yourself from men who offer empty promises and make room for someone who is ready to love you fully. Now let's talk about another phrase that often creates false hope. I've never felt this way before. At first, it may sound like the ultimate compliment. It makes you feel special, like you've touched his heart in a way no one else ever has. But in many cases, this is simply a tactic to fast-track emotional intimacy and lower your defenses. Genuine feelings take time to develop. A man who is truly experiencing deep emotions doesn't need to declare it right away. His actions will show it. If he says this too soon, before any real connection has formed, take a step back and evaluate the situation. True love isn't built on words alone. It grows through time, consistency, and shared experiences. Always pay attention to actions over words and never settle for anything less than a love that is honest, intentional, and unwavering. Empty promises when words move faster than actions. Real emotional connection isn't something that happens overnight. It isn't built on a few deep conversations or fleeting moments of passion. When a man tells you, "I've never felt this way before," within just days or weeks of meeting you, chances are he isn't speaking from a place of honesty. He's using this phrase as a strategy. This statement is often used by men who want to speed up emotional intimacy without investing the necessary time and effort to form a meaningful bond. They understand that hearing these words makes a woman feel special, chosen, and different. That emotional high can create a sense of attachment, making it harder for her to recognize red flags or question his true motives. Instead of stepping back to see if his actions align with his words, she may rush into trusting him, believing she's found something rare and irreplaceable. But let's take a moment to examine what this phrase really means in different situations. If a man has had previous relationships but claims that his feelings for you are unlike anything he's ever experienced, ask yourself, what exactly is he trying to say? If he insists he has never truly been in love before, why is that? Does he struggle with emotional availability? Has he avoided long-term commitment in the past? And if he has been in love before but claims this time is different, what exactly makes it different? Are his actions proving his words, or is it all just empty talk? One of the most common times this phrase appears is during the early stages of love bombing. Love bombing happens when someone overwhelms you with excessive affection, flattery, and attention in a short amount of time, making you feel deeply desired. However, the problem is that this kind of intensity is rarely genuine. It's a tactic. A man who says this too soon isn't necessarily looking to build something meaningful. More often than not, he's focused on winning you over as quickly as possible. Once he feels he has secured your trust and emotional investment, things begin to shift. The overwhelming gestures fade, the consistency disappears, and suddenly you're left wondering, what went wrong? What changed is that he got what he wanted, your attachment. Now, he no longer needs to work for it. A man who genuinely experiences deep emotions for the first time won't feel the need to rush the process or rely on grand declarations. He won't convince you with words alone. He will prove his sincerity through consistent actions, emotional openness, and long-term commitment. Instead of relying on exaggerated promises, he will build trust over time, showing you through his behavior that his feelings are real. True love is not about words spoken in the heat of the moment. It's about effort, respect, and a foundation that stands the test of time. Words versus actions, the truth behind his statements. If a man tells you, "I've never felt this way before," but disappears when you need emotional support, disregards your boundaries, or expects you to meet his needs without reciprocating, then his words were never sincere. The best way to respond to this kind of statement is not to get caught up in the moment. Instead of allowing it to cloud your judgment, pay close attention to his actions. Does he show up consistently? Does he respect your pace? Or is he trying to rush the relationship? Do his words align with genuine effort? Or do they feel rehearsed, like something designed to win you over quickly? A man who truly values you won't just make you feel special for a short time. He will prove it through consistent actions and long-term commitment. Your emotions should never be swayed by sweet words alone. Real love isn't about exaggerated declarations. It is built on honesty, effort, and mutual respect. Instead of focusing on what he says, look at what he does. That's where the real truth lies. What it really means. When he says, "My ex was crazy." Now let's talk about another phrase that should make you stop and think critically. My ex was crazy. At first, it might seem like a harmless remark or even a reasonable complaint. Maybe he's just opening up about his past, right? But in reality, this statement is often a major warning sign. More often than not, it reveals more about him than it does about his ex. This is one of the most common tactics used to shift blame, gain sympathy, and subtly prepare you to overlook certain behaviors in the future. Let's break it down. What is he actually saying when he labels his ex as crazy? In many cases, he's attempting to rewrite the story of his past relationship to make himself look like the victim and his ex, the unreasonable villain. This does two things. One, it allows him to avoid taking responsibility for his role in the relationship's failure. Two, it subtly warns you not to question or challenge him the way his ex supposedly did. Think about it. Very few relationships end purely because of one person's behavior. While toxic dynamics do exist and some individuals are difficult to deal with, if every story he shares paints his ex as an unstable, emotional mess while portraying himself as completely blameless, he's either being dishonest or withholding key details. The real question is, why does he feel the need to discredit his ex so strongly? A mature, self-aware person will acknowledge both the good and bad aspects of a past relationship. They will take accountability for their part in what went wrong, rather than resorting to blanket statements that make them look like the innocent party. Pay attention to how he speaks about his past relationships, because the way he describes his ex could be a reflection of how he will one day speak about you. A man who is genuinely respectful and emotionally mature won't need to tear someone else down to build himself up. The hidden message behind my ex was crazy. When a man describes his ex as crazy, he's not just sharing a harmless opinion, he's subtly shaping how you perceive both him and his past. This is a form of emotional manipulation. Why? Because once that idea is planted in your mind, you may start to hesitate when expressing emotions, setting boundaries, or calling him out on problematic behavior. You'll wonder, am I overreacting? Am I being unreasonable? And just like that, he's made you second-guess your own instincts. Another key factor to consider is patterns. If every woman he's dated was supposedly crazy, the common denominator isn't them, it's him. Either he repeatedly chooses unhealthy relationships, which signals his own emotional instability, or he's the actual problem and refuses to acknowledge it. A man who avoids accountability for his past relationships is unlikely to take responsibility in the present. So, how should you respond? Instead of blindly accepting his story, ask deeper questions. What specifically did she do that made her crazy? How did you handle those situations? Looking back, is there anything you could have done differently? A mature, emotionally intelligent man will give a balanced answer. He might say, "We both had our flaws. She had her struggles, but I also made mistakes." That's accountability. But if his response is filled with blame, defensiveness, or complete denial of any fault, that's a red flag. The reality is that the way a man speaks about his past relationships is a reflection of how he will one day speak about you. Today, he's calling her crazy. Tomorrow, you could be the next crazy ex in his story. A man with true emotional maturity doesn't degrade past partners to make himself look better. He acknowledges his role, learns from his experiences, and grows. So don't overlook this phrase. Recognize it for what it is, a warning sign. A man who genuinely respects women, both past and present, won't feel the need to tear them down. And if he refuses to take responsibility for his past, those same unresolved issues will follow him into his future. Protect your peace, set your standards high, and never allow someone else's baggage to become your burden. What "I need space" really means. When a man says, "I just need some space right now," it's easy to assume he's overwhelmed or dealing with something personal. After all, everyone needs time alone sometimes, right? But in many cases, this phrase is actually a subtle breakup, a delay tactic, or a way to keep you emotionally invested while he decides what he really wants. This is one of the most misunderstood statements in relationships, and if you're not careful, you might find yourself trapped in a cycle of waiting, hoping, and constantly questioning where you stand. So let's break it down. When someone genuinely needs space, they provide clarity. A man who truly cares will say something like, "I'm going through a lot right now, and I need some time to process." But this isn't about pushing you away. I value you, and I'll keep you updated on how I'm feeling. But if all he says is, "I need space," with no explanation or time frame, he's not just asking for a break, he's creating emotional distance without fully letting go. This keeps you in a state of uncertainty, making you question, did I do something wrong? Is he coming back? This is a form of emotional control. He's keeping you close enough to stay attached, but distant enough to avoid commitment. In many cases, "I need space" is just a polite way of pulling away without the guilt of an actual breakup. Maybe he's losing interest but doesn't want to hurt you. Maybe he's exploring other options while keeping you as a backup. Or maybe he simply enjoys the feeling of knowing you're still emotionally invested while he takes his time figuring things out. Whatever the case, one thing is certain. A man who truly respects and values you won't leave you feeling confused and insecure. Breaking free from the waiting trap. When a man asks for space, many women instinctively go into fix-it mode. They start analyzing everything. Was I too needy? Maybe if I give him time, he'll come back and appreciate me more. This is exactly what he's counting on. He wants the freedom to step back without the risk of losing you completely. The more you wait, the more control he has. So how should you respond? You don't chase and you don't wait. The moment a man says he needs space, match his energy. Give him all the space he wants, permanently if necessary. Don't send texts checking in. Don't sit around hoping he'll change his mind. A man who is truly interested in being with you won't put you in a position where you have to wonder where you stand. And a man who asks for space without clarity is showing you exactly where you stand, on the sidelines. Your time and emotions are too valuable to be spent waiting for someone who isn't sure about you. The right person won't need space to figure out whether they want to be with you. They'll know, and they'll act accordingly. Recognizing the truth behind his words. When a man tells you, "I need space," "I don't deserve you," or "I would never lie to you," it might sound like honesty, self-awareness, or reassurance. But words alone don't define a person. Actions do. If you're not careful, you might find yourself clinging to promises instead of observing behaviors. Let's break it down. When he says, "I need space," at first it may seem reasonable. Everyone needs time alone sometimes, but if there's no clear reason or time frame, what he's really doing is creating emotional distance while keeping you emotionally invested. A man who values you won't leave you confused. He will communicate openly and make you feel secure even when he's dealing with personal challenges. Instead of waiting around, match his energy. Give him all the space he needs, permanently if necessary. The right man won't need space from you. He'll make space for you in his life. When he says, "I don't deserve you," this phrase might seem like humility at first. But a man who truly believes he's not treating you right will do one of two things: step up or step aside. If he keeps repeating this line but makes no effort to change, what he's really saying is, "I know I'm not treating you the way you deserve, but I still want you to stay. Suddenly, you find yourself reassuring him instead of holding him accountable. You start comforting him instead of questioning whether he is showing up for you. But real love isn't about convincing someone of their worth. It's about being with someone who recognizes yours and acts accordingly. So how do you respond? Take his words at face value. If he insists he doesn't deserve you, believe him and walk away. The right man won't just admire you from a distance. He'll rise to meet your standards. When he says, "I would never lie to you." Honest people don't need to announce their integrity, it shows in their actions. If someone keeps repeating this statement, ask yourself, why do they feel the need to convince me? Often, this phrase is a defensive tactic. Instead of addressing your concerns directly, he tries to shut down the conversation by making you feel guilty for questioning him. This isn't transparency, it's manipulation. A man who truly values honesty won't rely on grand statements. He'll prove his trustworthiness by being consistent, taking accountability, and openly communicating. Watch his actions, not just his words. The most powerful women don't get caught up in empty promises. They observe patterns. They trust their instincts. They don't waste time convincing a man to step up, waiting for clarity, or settling for less than they deserve. So if a man's words don't align with his actions, take a step back. A man who is truly meant for you will never leave you feeling uncertain about where you stand. He won't make excuses, he'll make an effort. At the end of the day, love isn't about hearing the right words. It's about experiencing the right actions. Choose someone who shows up for you, not just someone who talks about it.